Today we're going to be removing and replacing the power steering pump on a 1993 GMC Safari van. So up on the top you have your power steering canister where you add the power steering fluid, and then those two hoses from it go down to the power steering pump, which is at the bottom of the engine. So this thing is fine, don't need to replace it. You might think about replacing the hoses if they look bad, but I'll probably just leave them. Then down below, that's the power steering pump right there. You can see the pulley on the front of it, so we'll have to take the accessory belt off. You can see the leak right there from the return line is actually cracked. So, you know, sometimes if you have a leak, you can just go and tighten up the connections and it'll be fine. But in this case, the return line connection is pretty much welded onto the back of the power steering pump, and so there's no way to replace it other than no way to repair it. You know, I can't just tighten it up because it's just a crack in a weld, probably because I have a broken motor mount and the thing's been jumping around, and the power steering return line has gotten pretty hard. So I'm going to replace that as well with some better new rubber. So undo that, undo the hose connection right there with the hose clamp. So undo the high pressure line, undo the hose clamp, and then undo the hose clamp on the top of it to the top tank. And then it will pull out, and we'll be able to pull it out of this hole here. All right, let's take a look at the new pump. So on the top of the pump, this is where your pulley would go right here. And then on the top of the pump, there's a plug, and this goes to the hose that goes to the filling reservoir up at the top of the engine. This is your return hose. On mine, this is where it's leaking. It's cracked right here, and that's not replaceable. It's welded onto the body. And then this is the high pressure hose where the high pressure fluid comes out. So the fluid comes out here, goes back in here, and then you fill up the level from here. And when you buy one of these, you want to make sure you get one with a reservoir attached. The reservoir is this back part. I initially bought one without a reservoir because I thought the reservoir was the thing where you fill it up at the top of the engine, you know, the little container, but the reservoir is actually the back side of the pump. So if you buy a pump without a reservoir, you just get this front part and you don't get the back part, and you have to assemble it yourself. You know, take the old pump front off of yours and then put the new pump front back onto yours. And since mine cracked here, I think I would recommend you just pay the extra 10 or 15 bucks and get the one with the reservoir on it. I'm also going to put on some new 3/8 inch hose on the return line as well, because the hose is 19 years old and it's really stiff, so that's probably overdue for replacement as well. Here's a quick lesson on how to pull a pulley off of your power steering pump. I'm installing a new power steering pump today. So I'm going to use this OEM pulley installer kit. You might say, hey, I don't have one of those. I don't have one of these either. If you go to your auto parts store, I went to AutoZone, but a lot of auto parts stores loan out tools, special tools. So you pay them 40 bucks for the kit, and if you bring it back within 90 days, they give you your 40 bucks back. So anytime you need some kind of weird special tool, always ask when you buy your parts if they have a weird special tool that'll help you out. So on the power steering pump, it looks like there should be a bolt in here holding the pulley on, but there isn't. It's just pressed on, and there are threads in here that you can use along with this puller kit to pull the pulley off and then to press the pulley back on, and it's really pretty simple to do once you understand it. So if the pulley were on there, you can see the pulley has a little lip on it here. So you take your little collar tool. See, this is a little, it's got ridges on the inside of it. And those ridges are designed to grab onto a puller, and then also to grab onto the lip on the pulley. So you put your puller on the pulley, and then put this circle collar over it, and that keeps the thing from splitting in half when you're turning it. And then you just simply hold it with the wrench, this big nut with a wrench, and then with another wrench you turn and turn and turn, and that presses against here and pops the pulley off. And then to put the pulley back on, you use this thing, which is a similar idea. It's going to go on there once you've got the collar put onto the pulley and the pulley lined up with the power steering pump. you just put this on top of it. Use 2 wrenches to screw this down once you've threaded it into here. So there are threads in here. Thread this into here, and then just work it down. Hold this bolt with a wrench, spin the other one down, and use the collar to press the pulley onto the shaft. It's really relatively simple. The only thing that's kind of a complicated part of it is that in order to get at the bolts to take the power steering pump out, at least on my car, I had to remove the pulley while it was still in the vehicle. So that kind of sucked. You might have to remove your radiator fan shroud or whatever else is in your way if it's a tight fit. Now, to reduce the mess as much as possible, I'm going to use safety goggles that have a seal around them, just a rubber seal, so I don't get chunks of crud in my eyes. I was getting chunks of crud in my eyes when I was inspecting it earlier. There's just so much crud on there. I suppose another option would be to spray it with foamy engine cleaner and then hose it off before you do the job, but that actually probably would be smarter to use the engine cleaner and the goggles. But I'm just going to use the goggles, go in there, pull it out, and put the new one in. And also going to use some rubber gloves, and then this turkey basting pan thingy to catch any hydraulic fluid that falls down. Now on the top side of the engine, to get the belt off, you'll see right under the pump here, or right under the on the top end side of the engine, right under the fluid reservoir, this is your belt tensioner. So you just want to grab onto this with a big wrench and then pull it this way. Pull it as if you were unscrewing it, and that will remove the tension, moving this pulley this way, remove the tension from the belt, and then you just slide the belt off. And that'll allow you to remove it from the pulley and then put it back on when you're done. Here's how that looks. If you push down on this, you can see the pulley move up when I push down on it, hopefully. See how that pulley moves? So I just can't do it with one hand, with the camera in one hand, but I just push down on this wrench, and then this thing moves up, and I slide the belt out from under it with my other hand. I've gotten the pump out. I'm going to replace this lower hose. The lower hose from the reservoir, the upper reservoir, goes to the power steering pump reservoir down below, and the hose didn't want to come off easy, so I just replaced the hose. It's just standard standard hose. I can't remember exactly what size it is. Does it say on there? It doesn't say on there, but I just took the old hose to the Pep Boys and had them give me a new one. There is a heat shield that goes on the hose about halfway down that you need to take off the old hose and put onto the new one. And down below, this is a dirty job too. You can see here's where the new one's going to go. So I've routed my hose from up top for the top of the reservoir, and this one I cut a little bit long, so I'm going to put the power steering pump on, and then I'm going to trim it up at the top once I know how long it needs to be from down here. That will give me more room to maneuver down here. I've also replaced the hose that goes to the power steering assembly, and that's just regular 3/8 inch hose. This is the return hose, so it doesn't handle high pressure. The high pressure hose is, oh, can you see it up here? But that one I've got to clean off good. Problem is, when you're working with hydraulics, you don't want to get any dirt inside of the mechanism, so it would have been smartest for me to clean off this whole area before I got started, but too late to be smart now, so maybe you can do that in the future. Also, removing the pulley, when I removed the pulley from the front of the pump, I didn't have to remove the fan shroud or the fan or anything. I was able to work around it, so that was good news. It speeds things up. Should be done in about half an hour, and we'll see if it runs. Alright, that went in really nice. The pulley tool made it so easy to just press the pulley on. I didn't have to remove the fan shroud or anything other than the fan belt. So now we've got new return hoses, new fill hose on the top, new power steering pump, and we should be ready to rock here once I put the belt on and fill it up. Alright, on top of the engine, I'm going to cut this hose to the proper length now that it's connected on the bottom. Slide the insulator down and hook it up here. You can look at the cable routing. That's how a fan belt should be routed. I tightened it all back up and everything looks good. Give you another shot of that from here. It's almost impossible to see because this is a van. Then we, once I've got this hose hooked up, we fill this up, then we fire it up, turn the steering wheel left all the way, right all the way, turn it back and forth a bit, and then check the fluid level and fill it up again, and probably check it periodically for a little while just to make sure that all the bubbles get worked out and that nothing's leaking out the bottom. Alright, that's done. It took less than 2 of these. One of them was half full and the other one was full, so now I've used maybe a little more than 1 bottle, filled it up. And there's the old one. I've got to take that back to get my car charged back. And that's pretty much it. Alright, now that we've replaced the parts, here's how to bleed the air bubbles out of the system. First, they want you to jack up the front of the vehicle so that the wheels are off the ground, and then turn the wheel all the way to the left, check the fluid reservoir, make sure it's up to the full cold mark, turn them from left to right to left to right at least 20 times with the engine running, of course, and then add fluid until it's up to the full cold mark. Then take the vehicle off the jack stands, let it run for 2 minutes. With the engine idling, turn the wheels in both directions to the stop several times. And then stop the engine, check the fluid level, and add it as necessary, and then drive it to make sure that it works. Let it sit for 2 or 3 hours, and then recheck the fluid again. So that's what I've been doing. But it's easier to just have me read it to you than it is to show you each step. Basically just turn it left to right, left to right, left to right. Keep checking the fluid level until it shows full. Pretty easy, at least you don't have to drain it or open up a valve or anything. Just go left to right until it works.